Uh. To whoever may need this nugget of encouragement, things will be alright, so quit your worrying. I get it.
What's good, you guys? Welcome back to For the Underdogs podcast. I hope this episode finds you well. I hope everybody is enjoying the start to their summer and doing the things that make them happy, spending time with the people they love. I think that's important at this time of year. One of my favorite things that I've heard in the last couple of weeks when it comes to perfection was from Sean McVay, and it was, I don't expect perfection, but I appreciate people who don't want to let others down. And it made me think about the expectations or perfectionism that we place on ourselves and even others around us in some cases. Whenever I'm in that mode of dissecting my personality traits, I always end up going down the rabbit hole and doing all types of research, watching all types of videos, the whole nine, because I want to know everything I can about it. And if I'm the only one that's dealing with it, which I know is far-fetched to say, but you never know. So, of course, I have some actual facts about perfectionism from an article I read through Forbes, and it says that 92% of people deal with some sort of perfectionism in their lives. So that's the vast majority of us, whether we're dealing with perfectionism in our workplace, our relationships, our home life, whatever the case may be, we're all dealing with it, or at least the majority of us are. 92% is a high number. I've always been a bit of a perfectionist in my own way. And throughout life, I've always felt the expectations from people close to me to uphold this persona of being perfect. I think a lot of Black men feel that, just to be real. I think where we come from and you begin to have a level of success, whether it be through sports or music, whatever the case may be, I think a lot of us have that feeling from family or friends that we are perfect because we are the ones that have accomplished this thing. And that starts to wear on you a little bit mentally. I've learned to accept my imperfections at this point in my life. For so long, I felt that pressure. I felt that pressure of, I've got to be this way because this is what someone in my position should do. And once I got past that, I was really able to address the things I needed to address within myself and truly be happy. I was out to dinner with one of my boys we basically grew up together. We've known each other for years, and he told me, damn, Jamil, we're so proud of you. You really figured it out. You inspire us. And I accepted that. I've been working on accepting compliments from people when I feel like they're genuine, really, leaning into what that should feel like and accepting it with gratitude, because I think that's something that is hard to do sometimes. So I've really been working on that. But in the back of my mind, I was wondering why I don't feel like I've done enough. I may be looked at as he figured it out, or he's done this, or he's done that to some of my peers. But also in my mind, I'm thinking I haven't done enough. And that relates all back to perfectionists, because I'm looking for, my mind's telling me that I need more. I need to accomplish this. I didn't accomplish what I wanted in my career. Okay, so what's the next step? We got to go. We got to get better. We got to go further to keep progressing and keep reaching that quote unquote perfect life that we all think we should be living. But hearing him say that, you never know what someone's perfect world may be. Not everyone's perfect world is, the millions of dollars and all the cars and the clothes and things like that, which I think sometimes we get lost in that. That's not it. It has a lot to do with, are you a stand-up person? Are you a stand-up guy? Do you move by your word? You do what you say you're going to do. What type of values do you have? How do you take care of your family? How do you tend to your kids? How are you in your relationship? That's where I place my perfection at these days. And it's such a healthy way to look at things, because these are all things I can control. I can control how I interact with the people I love. I can control if I do what I say I'm going to do. I can't control all the external things. I'm not worried about that. And I will say at one point in time, I thought that is what makes someone successful or perfect, because growing up where we come from, you see so many people make it out and they get all of these things and you think that that's what it is, when really it's not. Coincidentally, I've been reading this book by Tom Curran, and it's called The Perfection Trap. And it was given to me by my friend Darren Treasure, who I've had on the podcast before. Shout out to Darren. He's been very influential in my life over the past year or so, especially during my career. But it's been a really good read, to say the least, almost too good sometimes, because it resonates so much. And it's given me the information on perfectionists. And there's 3 main types of perfectionism. And I'd be curious to know how you guys feel about the categories you fall into. And typically you can be in at least 2 of them. It doesn't have to just be one. I feel like I fall into 2 of these. The first one is self-oriented perfectionism. This type of perfectionism involves setting excessively high standards for ourselves and striving to achieve them. People with self-oriented perfectionism are often very self-critical and may experience intense pressure and stress due to the expectations they've placed on themselves. They tend to have a strong need for personal achievement and fear failure. This is me 1,000,000%. In my past, I've always placed a lot of high expectations on myself, and sometimes overwhelming. That was how I operated for so long as a player. It wasn't good for the football, Jamil, and on top of that, it also trickled into my life off the field. And it was hard to maintain that expectation of myself. That's the quickest way to burn out. And when I made a mistake or had conflict, it was so big that it was hard for me to move past. But imagine being graded on your performance in your respective careers since you're a kid. I mean, I started playing this game coming out of elementary school. So just by nature, it becomes your norm. You know, you get an A, B, C, or D. Since a kid, it was either good or bad or needs to be better. It becomes hard to shake that. So you start to think that way internally. I've had conversations with my therapist about why I feel that way, or why I'm feeling these perfectionist tendencies. And she gave me some really good advice. She said, because it's at my core, I truly care. And I do. I take pride in things I do. I'm pretty confident to say I've worked at fixing the mentality, and I've come so far as to dealing with my thought process behind perfectionism. So yeah, the first one is self-oriented perfectionist. The second one is other-oriented perfectionism. This type involves imposing unrealistic standards and expectations on others. People with other-oriented perfectionism are critical and demanding of those around them, expecting others to meet their high standards. This can obviously strain relationships and lead to conflict. And the last one is socially prescribed perfectionism. This type of perfectionist involves the perception that others have high expectations of us. People with socially prescribed perfectionism believe that their value is based on meeting external standards. They often feel pressured and anxious about meeting others' expectations and fear judgment or rejection if they fail. I've 1,000% dealt with this. Playing at the highest level comes with a lot of scrutiny and judgment from people. So I've checked that box before. I've definitely dealt with socially prescribed perfectionism, and it has a different type of effect, I think, from a player standpoint when everything you've done has been public over the course of your life. So all three types of these that I listed can have different impacts on our mental health and our well-being. I feel like once I went through the process of learning what each one is, it became easier for me to address the challenges that each one presents and the ones that I've obviously dealt with throughout my life. If you don't know which ones they are, it's just kind of hard to narrow it down and begin to work through it. So again, the quote that I spoke about earlier was, "I don't expect perfectionism, but I appreciate those who don't want to let others down." And that got me thinking, can I accept my perfectionism? Given what the quote says, I feel like we all have high expectations of ourselves, and in some cases, feel the weight of others placing expectations on us as well. But when we look at just how we feel about perfectionism, are we able to move past the fact that we are truly just not wanting to let ourselves down? The reality of it is I've never looked at my perfectionist ways as me being motivated to not let myself down. I was conditioned to look at it as failure or it's not good enough. And I take ownership in that as well. It's on me to figure it out. You know, do you accept the cards you're dealt or do you play them and get a better hand eventually? It takes emotional intelligence, which I would say I lacked for a long period of time. And I've made so many strides in that area, being able to check in with myself and learning to put emotions behind what I'm feeling each day, that I began to learn how to deal with these emotions that come with perfectionists. But really though, big picture, when I think about it, I wasn't failing. I'm not failing. It was good and is good enough. And the effort is really what matters. Whatever I was attempting to do, I was giving my best. And I know that because I'm wired that way. I've never been the type to half-ass do something. You know, it'd be different if I knew I was going into it and not giving my best effort. But I know deep down within myself, whether I failed or whether I was successful, I've always been the type to give everything I have into something because, like I said, what my therapist told me, at my core, I truly care about the things that I'm doing. And I feel like the question that always used to bother me, when you feel like you've given 100% in something, and I think a lot of people can resonate with this, not just players, but when you've given 100% in something and you thought you gave your best effort, but a coach or someone of authority tells you that it's not good enough, but in the back of your mind, you gave everything you had, that leaves you at a standstill of wondering, okay, where do I go from here? I know, speaking from a player standpoint, when I felt like I gave everything into a performance and I didn't get the results I wanted, it was almost deflating mentally because that's literally showing you that your best isn't good enough on film. Externally, actually, it's external. It's from a coach's perspective or someone of authority's perspective. But if I had looked at it as, okay, they said it wasn't enough, but I know that I truly gave 100% of everything I have, maybe I could have had a different outlook or given myself grace for falling short on something, but you didn't fail. I was looking at not being perfect as failing, and we know nobody is perfect in this world, but for some reason, we're expected to be perfect. I don't know. I'm just talking right now. I'm completely off script, but I think a lot of people would be able to resonate with that. And it was just something that was on my mind. When I do reflections, a lot of times I like to take myself back into those moments and I just think about where I was mentally at that time. And a lot of the things that I dealt with had to be centered around expectations of being perfect. So I hope you guys found this episode helpful. I hope everyone gets something out of it. I want to know what category you guys would place yourself into if you've dealt with perfectionism, socially prescribed, other-oriented, self-oriented. Which one is it? Because I feel like when we begin to figure out which category we fall into, the mental gymnastic becomes easier we're able to actually navigate why we're feeling emotions. Is it because someone's placed this expectation on you, or is it because you've placed an expectation on yourself and you feel like you've fallen short? Did you really fall short, or was it just not perfect? And if it's not perfect, nobody's perfect. So give yourself some grace and keep pushing, keep moving forward. I think that's the best way to look at things. I appreciate you guys tuning into this episode. Like, subscribe, download. I'll speak to you soon.